Imagine you are a real estate agent
Right.
and you are trying to sell this €500,000 apartment.
Okay, high stakes right out of the gate. I like it.
Right. So your client walks through the front door and they just stop dead in their tracks.
Oh, I know this moment.
Yeah, they're looking around this totally empty, sort of echoing, slightly dim living room, and they cross their arms, they squint, and they look at you and say, "Where does the TV even go?"
The absolute worst question you can get.
It is. Because then you get that awful, awkward silence. Where you're standing there trying to explain that, well, maybe a couch could fit in the corner and the TV could sort of angle toward the window.
You're just doing hand geometry at that point.
Exactly. It's so painful. And that specific moment of friction is exactly what we're looking at for today's deep dive. Welcome in, by the way. Our mission today is exploring how a French startup realized that curing that exact mundane moment of awkwardness is actually worth €10,000 a month in recurring revenue.
Which is just a wild number for something so seemingly simple.
Right. I mean, we are unpacking the story of a startup called Iacrea. It was founded by Pauline Clavelot. And what's so cool here is they completely skipped the whole, futuristic tech narrative.
Yeah, they really did.
They just built a highly lucrative business by solving a completely ordinary problem: bad property photos.
And what's really fascinating here is that the entire foundation of this €10,000 a month business, it's built on a cognitive blind spot.
Cognitive blind spot.
Yeah, rather than some massive technological breakthrough. Like if you look at Pauline's initial research, we see this massive failure rate in human imagination.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. 8 out of 10 people cannot physically visualize the potential of a property when it is empty or cluttered. They literally can't do it.
Wait. 80%?
Yep.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because an 80% failure rate for something as basic as, I don't know, imagining a couch in a room, that seems almost unbelievably high to me. Why is our spatial awareness that fragile?
Well, human brains are just incredibly dependent on reference points, to calculate scale and volume.
Okay.
So when you walk into an empty room, or even just look at a photo of an empty room, you don't have those anchors.
Like a bed or something.
Exactly. Without a standard size object like a bed or a dining table, the brain actually misjudges the dimensions completely.
So the room literally looks different to us.
Yeah, an empty 15 by 15 foot room often looks noticeably smaller than the exact same room fully furnished.
That is so counterintuitive. You'd think the furniture takes up space.
Right, but the brain needs the context.
Yeah.
And on top of that spatial confusion, you have the emotional processing.
What do you mean by emotional processing?
Well, when a buyer looks at a photo of a bare, dimly lit room with, say, a few scuff marks on the wall, the brain doesn't naturally fill the space with, like, a beautiful mid-century modern sofa.
Or a nice rug or whatever.
Right. It doesn't see a thriving fiddle leaf fig in the corner. Instead, it floods the viewer's cognitive load with anticipated labor.
Oh, man. That makes so much sense. It's like staring at a blank canvas when you don't know how to paint.
That is a great way to put it.
Because if someone hands me a blank canvas and says, "Hey, imagine the masterpiece," I'm just going to stare back with pure panic in my eyes.
Exactly.
I don't see a masterpiece at all. I see a piece of cloth that I am undoubtedly going to ruin.
Yes. Honestly, it's worse than a blank canvas. It's a canvas that demands you build the frame, stretch the canvas, and, like, mix the pigments yourself before you even start.
Oh, that sounds exhausting.
It is. The data shows buyers immediately associate those empty, sad photos with work.
Right.
They see painting, they see themselves measuring corners, they see dragging heavy boxes up 2 flights of stairs on a humid Saturday.
The worst.
And when a buyer sees physical labor instead of warmth, the perceived value of that property just instantly drops.
So they aren't even thinking about the price anymore. They're thinking about the sweat.
Exactly. The friction required to get them to schedule a viewing, let alone actually make an offer, it just goes through the roof. So Pauline recognized that the core bottleneck in the real estate sales funnel, well, it wasn't necessarily the asking price.
Okay.
And it wasn't the location. The bottleneck was literally the buyer's neurological inability to visualize a life inside those walls.
Okay, that entirely reorients how you have to build a product.
Completely.
Because if the core problem is just an inability to visualize scale and warmth, the solution doesn't require, a team of PhDs.
Right.
You don't need to develop some crazy haptic feedback virtual reality suit just to sell a 2-bedroom condo.
No, not at all.
You just have to bridge that very specific, very narrow imagination gap.
That's the whole game.
And the way Iacrea actually does this mechanically It is deceptively straightforward.
It really is.
Like a real estate agent takes a photo of that sad, empty room, and they just upload it to the platform. And through the interface, they can literally drop in virtual furniture, instantly clear out a cluttered room, brighten a gloomy sky outside the window. They can even turn the whole thing into a short, polished video.
In just a few clicks.
Yeah, and suddenly, the listing looks lived in.
Because the interface shields the user from all the underlying complexity.
Right, because I assume there's a lot going on back there.
Oh, tons. Under the hood, doing lighting adjustments, doing perspective scaling for a virtual sofa, and shadow rendering.
That's not easy.
No, it requires significant computing power. But the user, they don't see any of that. The user just clicks a style, maybe they click Scandinavian Modern, and boom, the room transforms.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, and I am actually going to push back hard on this premise for a second.
All right, let's hear it.
Because this sounds incredibly basic. I mean, I can go to the App Store on my phone right now and download like a dozen different photo editing apps for $3.
Sure you can.
And they can brighten the sky or erase a piece of trash from a photo. So if this is just about uploading a photo and tweaking the lighting, why on earth are real estate professionals paying a premium, recurring, monthly subscription for this?
Well, you are looking at this through the lens of a general tech consumer.
Okay, fair.
Someone who has time to sit on the couch and play around with apps. A real estate agent who is trying to flip 3 houses before the weekend. They do not have time to learn a new interface.
They're busy.
Extremely. They don't want to fiddle with brightness sliders or try to figure out the exact perspective scaling of a digital couch on a tiny mobile app.
That makes sense. That sounds frustrating, actually.
It is. The friction of professional or even semi-professional horizontal tools, and by horizontal I mean tools designed to do a little bit of everything for everyone, that friction is a massive barrier.
Okay, so Pauline avoided that entirely.
Explicitly.
Well,
She explicitly avoided building a complex photo manipulation engine. She built a vertical solution.
meaning it just does one thing.
One thing for one specific industry with absolutely zero learning curve.
Oh, I get it. So it's the difference between buying a Swiss Army knife and buying a specialized power drill.
I love that analogy. Yeah.
Because the Swiss Army knife has a screwdriver, sure. But if you have to drive 100 screws a day, you are going to pay a premium for the power tool because it saves your wrists.
And it saves your time, which is money.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of innovation, we constantly confuse technical complexity with market value.
We really do. We assume it has to be incredibly complicated to be valuable.
We assume a product has to boast 100 cutting-edge features to justify a high price tag. But true value usually lies in execution.
Execution and targeting.
Exactly. Targeting a highly specific, very painful workflow. An agent doesn't want to become a graphic designer. They just want a single button that says, make this property look sellable so I can get to my next appointment.
Make my life easier, basically. So what does this all mean for the financial mechanics of the business? Like, why does the agent actually hand over their credit card month after month?
This is the best part.
Because the breakdown of the true motivation of the buyer here, to me, is just a masterclass in understanding where the money actually moves in an economy.
It really is. You have to look at the environment where this product operates. It sits exactly in the slipstream of massive financial transactions.
Massive. We're talking houses.
Right. When the asset being sold carries a 6- or 7-figure price tag, the tolerance for spending a little bit of money to market it effectively expands dramatically.
Yeah, I guess a monthly fee of 50 or 100 euros is, what, effectively a rounding error for an agent?
Totally. Especially when their commission on a single sale might be 10 or 15,000 euros. The ROI is just a no-brainer.
It pays for itself instantly.
Instantly. That product justifies its costs simply by making the marketing materials look professional enough to attract a buyer who is preparing to spend $500,000.
So it's all about the context of the transaction.
Exactly.
Because nobody is paying a 50 euro monthly subscription to enhance photos of a used bicycle they're trying to sell on Facebook Marketplace for 40 bucks.
No, the math doesn't work there.
The math absolutely does not work.
But for a piece of real estate, the math is inevitable.
It's inevitable, but, beyond the pure financial context, the behavioral driver behind the purchase is what really stuck out to me.
Oh, you mean the emotional side?
Yeah. The avoidance of the awkward explanation.
Yes. The moment of friction we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive.
That's the real product.
The data makes this so explicitly clear. Real estate professionals, they're not buying artificial intelligence.
No, they couldn't care less about the AI.
They are buying fewer awkward explanations during property visits. They aren't paying for software architecture. They are paying for emotional relief.
And this raises such an important question about how entire industries market their tools. Tech creators, they almost always focus on the features.
Oh, always. Speeds and feeds. They shout about their rendering speed, their proprietary neural networks, their seamless API integrations.
And the end user just does not care.
The end user rarely cares about the neural network. They care that they are standing in a drafty, weirdly shaped living room with a skeptical couple who are crossing their arms and checking their watches.
That uncomfortable dance where the agent has to sort of wave their arms around and say, well, you could put a rug over those floorboards and maybe the dining table fits here.
It is an incredibly high-pressure sales moment.
You can physically feel the buyer's interest evaporating while the agent is just scrambling to paint a picture with words.
But if the client already gets the apartment before they even walk through the physical door...
Because they saw the photos online.
Right, because they scrolled through these beautifully staged virtual versions of the space, half the sales job is already done.
The brain has already processed it.
Exactly. Their brain has already processed the spatial calculations. They walk in, their brain overlays the digital image onto the physical space, and they instinctively know the TV goes in the corner and the sofa goes against the wall.
So the agent doesn't have to explain anything.
The agent is entirely freed from having to explain the mechanics of the room. They just get to nod, smile, and focus on closing the deal.
Selling fewer awkward conversations is infinitely more powerful than selling photo editing.
Infinitely.
Because you are ultimately selling confidence. You're selling a smoother, much less stressful workday.
Which is priceless.
It is. When a piece of software perfectly aligns with a professional's financial incentives, meaning it helps them move a high-value asset faster, while simultaneously removing the emotional friction from their day-to-day interactions, it becomes incredibly sticky.
Oh, they are never churning. That agent is never going to cancel that subscription.
Never.
Which, honestly, is the launchpad for how a 10,000 euro MRR business actually scales. Well, once a company proves it can eliminate that one specific, painful interaction, it gains unprecedented trust with the user.
Right, because they delivered on the core promise.
Exactly. And iCrea used that initial high-value solution to get inside the real estate agent's daily routine. They didn't just stop at placing a virtual couch in an empty room.
No, they really didn't. They took a process that usually looks like a clunky relay race and just completely collapsed it.
A relay race is a perfect way to describe it.
Because think about the traditional marketing pipeline for a new property listing.
Okay.
The agent gets the contract. They run the first leg of the race, right? Driving out to the property to take the photos.
Yep.
Then they have to hand the baton to a freelance designer or a staging agency, wait 3 days, and pay a premium for a few static, edited images.
And that's just the second leg.
That's just the second leg. Then they take those images and hand the baton to a video editor to stitch together a slideshow.
Which takes more time.
Exactly. Finally, they pass it to a social media manager, or let's be real, they spend their own Friday night doing it, trying to figure out the aspect ratio for an Instagram reel versus a standard property portal.
It is such a disjointed process, full of bottlenecks and drop batons.
Right.
And every single one of those handoffs introduces delay. It introduces extra vendor costs. And most dangerously, it introduces an opportunity for the agent to suffer decision fatigue.
To just give up.
Yeah, to just say, forget it, I'll just upload the raw, ugly photos and hope for the best.
Which hurts the sale.
Exactly. So iCrea collapsed that entire fragmented pipeline into a single interface. One agent clicks a few buttons, the room is digitally staged, the lighting is fixed, and the platform instantly generates content formatted for official listings, for vertical social media video, and for client presentation decks.
It's all just there.
All of it. They completely eliminated the middlemen by becoming the sole piece of infrastructure.
It is the ultimate land and expand execution. You find the entry point. And the entry point is the mundane problem that forces the user to open their wallet out of pure frustration.
The sad, empty room.
The sad, empty room. And once you solve that problem, and they are logged into your dashboard every single day, you just slowly absorb every other tool they use.
And we see this quietly unfolding in Pauline's roadmap, actually. Yeah. Once the users were inside the ecosystem, enjoying the fact that they weren't having awkward client conversations anymore, the platform introduced video generation.
Just casually added it in.
Right. So an agent who just came for a staged photo sees a button offering a 3D video tour. They click it. It works.
Boom. New feature adopted.
Then the platform rolls out publishing tools to send those videos directly to social media.
Wow.
Then customizable marketing templates. Eventually, they even added lead generation forms attached to the virtual tours.
So the tool you originally purchased just to, like, put a virtual rug in a JPEG is suddenly running your entire digital marketing department.
Exactly, and it happens almost invisibly.
Because every new feature feels like a natural extension of making the user's life easier.
Right, rather than some whole new system they are forced to learn from scratch.
That makes a lot of sense.
Imagine if Pauline had tried to sell a comprehensive end-to-end AI real estate marketing and lead generation suite on day one.
Oh, agents would have immediately tuned out.
Instantly. It would have sounded like that intimidating, futuristic science fiction product we discussed at the start of the deep dive.
It would have sounded like a massive learning curve.
It would have sounded like weekend homework.
Yeah, no one wants weekend homework.
Yeah.
But by selling a targeted cure to a single, highly visible pain point, she completely bypassed all that standard enterprise software resistance.
She really did.
And honestly, for you listening, it really forces a perspective shift on how we evaluate potential business ideas.
It certainly does.
Because we are constantly conditioned by tech media to look for the revolutionary, right? The disruptive, the platform that is going to fundamentally rewire human behavior.
The next big thing.
Meanwhile, a founder is pulling in 10,000 euros a month by looking at a photo of a dark living room and realizing she can make an agent's afternoon slightly less stressful.
Because human nature does not fundamentally change just because the technology around us advances.
That's a great point.
Buyers are always going to lack imagination when looking at empty spaces. Sellers are always going to despise awkward, high-pressure conversations. The friction of conducting business remains remarkably constant across decades.
So the companies that capture the market aren't necessarily the ones deploying the most complex algorithms.
No, they are the ones that understand the human friction better than anyone else.
They are the ones who look at the buyer standing in that empty, echoey room, staring blankly at the walls, and realize the buyer just wants someone to hand them a picture of the finished puzzle.
Exactly. They don't want to do the math.
No one wants to do the math.
And, taking a step back from real estate, the underlying mechanics of this startup apply to nearly every sector of the economy.
Oh, absolutely.
We all have our industry's equivalent of the bad property photo.
Right, whatever that looks like for your job.
There is always a mundane, annoying roadblock that creates daily friction, that makes a workflow slightly more irritating than it needs to be, or that forces professionals into awkward conversations with their own clients, patients, or managers.
And the immediate temptation is to look for a massive structural overhaul to fix it.
Right. We want to rip out the entire system and install something completely new.
Which almost always creates more friction in the short term.
Exactly. What actually works, what actually generates sustainable revenue, is identifying the precise moment the frustration peaks and just smoothing it out just a fraction.
Just removing that one little pebble from the shoe.
It requires internalizing the fact that customers, regardless of their industry, they are not buying your underlying technology.
They don't care how many late nights it took your engineering team to build it.
They really don't. They only care that their specific headache is gone.
They want the emotional relief.
Always. And as we wrap up this analysis, I actually want to leave you with a question to chew on regarding your own professional environment.
Oh, I like this. Lay it on us.
So we've just dissected how real estate agents eagerly opened their wallets not to buy artificial intelligence, but to eliminate uncomfortable moments in their workday.
Right.
Look closely at the complex tools or the heavily marketed AI solutions currently being pushed in your own industry.
Okay.
Are the creators of those tools actually solving your core everyday bottlenecks? Or are they just trying to sell you their grand vision of the future, when all you really want to buy is the elimination of a few awkward conversations?